Boy, am I a glutton for punishment, because every time I make videos about these dating phenomena things, a bunch of feminists get really, really angry. In the latest story from The Atlantic, if you want a marriage of equals, then date as equals. Why are many dating practices a throwback to an earlier era? This researcher, Ellen Lamont, found that even though many of these women and men said they wanted an equal relationship, when it came to dating, they didn't. Surprise. Actually, not surprising at all. Women wanted the men to pay, the men to ask, the men to propose, all of these things. And the men would then go on to say that they wanted an egalitarian relationship with equals, but sure enough, when they actually wanted to date or get married, they wanted to be stronger, taller breadwinners, and they wanted the wife to do the housework. This could be a social remnant of traditional gender roles, sure. Or it could be evidence suggesting that people like certain things based on their gender. Perhaps that's really what it is. Now, I don't know for sure, but I can say before we read this, a couple important things, throwing back to a few other stories that I've talked about. One, regardless of what you think about what men want and gender roles and feminism or whatever, men typically message on dating apps 22-year-old women. That data comes from OkCupid. And women tend to message men around their own age. I'm not saying either is right or wrong, so don't get mad at me. That's just the data they released. But we can extrapolate from there. 30-year-old career women are not going to find 30-year-old career men like they want to, because the 30-year-old career men are messaging 22-year-old women. This is another point I want to make sure it's clear as we get into this. When she talks about meeting men who want an egalitarian relationship and a relationship of equals, how can that be if most men are messaging down? A 30-year-old man is not going to be societal equals with a 22-year-old for the most part. She's going to have substantially less world experience, life experience, and a lower income and probably a lower tier job than a 30-year-old guy. But that's what guys are messaging. So when you look at what she actually finds, the guys want a woman doing housework to a certain extent, and they want to be the breadwinners. It all makes sense. Actions speak louder than words. I think we're facing a weird conundrum in our country with dating, because what is socially acceptable is not what is desirable. Women want men to make the first move when it comes to adult activities, to put it mildly. But if men do that, they can be accused or me too'd. So what is socially acceptable is dramatically different from what both men and women actually want. So let's read and figure out what she discovered when this feminist sociologist interviewed 100 couples. I believe it was couples. Let's read. She writes, heterosexual women of a progressive bent often say they want equal partnerships with men, but dating is a different story entirely. The women I interviewed for a research project and book expected men to ask for, plan, and pay for dates, initiate sex, confirm the exclusivity of a relationship, and propose marriage. After setting all of those precedents, these women then wanted a marriage in which they shared the financial responsibilities, housework, and childcare relatively equally. Almost none of my interviewees saw these dating practices as a threat to their feminist credentials or to their desire for egalitarian marriages, but they were wrong. You see, I think I can understand why this is happening. A marriage is very different from dating. Dating is courtship. When you're dating, you're trying to be attractive and be attracted. But marriage is a lifelong partnership where you just probably are going to be yourself, but around someone. A marriage relationship, to me, is actually more practical in the business sense. You want to have a kid? Well, let's share responsibilities. We're going to live together. Let's share responsibilities. Dating, on the other hand, is more primal and instinctive, and you're trying to find a mate. So it's no surprise that traditional gender roles go out the window when they're dating. And then after they've already secured the relationship, now they want all that sweet, sweet good stuff that progress has wrought. She says, as a feminist sociologist, I've long been interested in how gender influences our behavior in romantic relationships. I was aware of the research that showed greater gains in gender equality at work than at home. Curious to explore some of the reasons behind these numbers, I spent the past several years talking with people about their dating lives and what they wanted from their marriages and partnerships. The heterosexual and LGBTQ people I interviewed, more than 100 in total, okay, so not 100 couples, were highly educated, professional track young adults who lived in the greater San Francisco Bay Area. Oh, that makes it even worse. We're not just talking about progressives and feminists. We're talking about San Francisco progressives and feminists. She goes on to say, this was not a cross-section of America, for certain, but I did expect to hear progressive views. Most wanted equal partnerships where they could share both financial and family responsibilities. Almost everyone I interviewed was quite vocal in their support of gender equality and didn't shy away from the feminist label. However, I noticed a glaring disconnect between the straight women's views on marriage and their thoughts on dating. Once these women were married, it was difficult to right the ship, so to speak. The same gender stereotypes that they adopted while dating played out in their long-term partnerships. Whoa, whoa, whoa. You mean to tell me the stereotype about women changing after marriage is true? Let me tell you a joke. It's not a joke. It's a saying that says, men marry women for who they are, and women marry men for who they want them to be. And this actually kind of lines up with that. Could you imagine? All right, let's say you're a man or a woman, whatever. Imagine you have a partner, you're dating, and they act a certain way. And you're like, I like this about them. I like who they are. I would like to spend the rest of my life with this. And then after you get married, all of a sudden they do a 180. Well, that would suck. You'd be like, no, I don't like who you've become. What is this? So that's what this saying is supposed to be about. Women are always trying to change men based on their potential to be something more. And men like women for what they already were, but then women change. So everybody ends up unhappy, I suppose. But I find it funny that she's straight up saying these women claim they want an equal relationship, but date someone based on traditional gender roles. So if you marry a guy and then now all of a sudden you want things to change, why would you expect them to? He married you for who you were and the way you behaved. Lo and behold, these guys wanted a traditional wife. She writes, 3/4 of millennials in America support gender equality at work and home and agree that ideal marriage is an equitable one. Consequently, I expected the young women I interviewed to epitomize feminist liberation. Yet, when they thought of equality among men and women, they focused more on professional opportunities than interpersonal dynamics. Americans with a college education now get married in their early 30s on average, as young adults put their love life on hold while they invest in their education and establish a career. Given the significant time, money, and effort they put into building their career, the women I spoke with expected to partner with people who would support their ambitious professional goals. The men said they desired and respected these independent, high-achieving women and actually saw them as more compatible partners as a result. And yet, in a throwback to an earlier era, many women I spoke with enacted strict dating rules. It's a deal breaker if a man doesn't pay for a date. One woman, age 29, said. A 31-year-old said, if a man doesn't pay, they probably don't like you very much. A lot of men, they assumed, were looking for nothing more than a quick hookup. Uh-oh, wait a minute. You mean biology is playing a role in whether or not you will adopt certain social characteristics or behaviors? Now these people sound like biological determinists. They go on to say, a third woman, also 31, told me, I feel like men need to feel like they are in control. And if you ask them out, you end up looking desperate and it's a turnoff to them. But I thought you were great feminists. As a feminist, wouldn't you want to weed those men out? Wait. Why would a feminist want to date a guy who needs to be in control? Wouldn't she have no problem saying, I want to be in an egalitarian relationship? Perhaps the reality is, traditional gender roles are rooted in evolutionary psychology. And while biological determinism is not 100% accurate, there is a reality of, at least somewhat, nature and nurture working together. And I think we're seeing it. What they say is not what they do. What they say about feminism is socially acceptable. It's the words you need to hear to attract a mate, but the behaviors are very, very different. In the end, these progressive San Francisco Bay Area people get married and fall into traditional gender roles to a certain degree. She writes, on dates, the women talked about acting demure and allowing men to do more of the talking. Women, they said, were more attractive to men when they appeared unattainable, so women preferred for the men to follow up after a date. None of the women considered proposing marriage. That was the man's job. I know it feels counterintuitive. I'm a feminist, the first woman said, but I like to have a guy be chivalrous. Whoa, chivalry? That's a remnant of a bygone era. I'm not surprised by any of this. I'll tell you what we're seeing from this is that when women tell you they want something, privately to researchers, they say the opposite. And that's why you end up with the manosphere red pill communities. Because a culture has emerged where women will claim they want all of these things, but actually react still to traditional gender roles. You end up with then people exploiting this and writing books about it. The feminists get mad, yell at me for talking about it, but this is a feminist sociology associate professor who found this when she interviewed people. Now, of course, this is not necessarily proof definitive, but I can't say I'm surprised to discover that once again, biology plays a huge role in whether or not people are going to act certain ways in their relationships. The women are saying they think men want these things. So the one woman says, she feels that men want to be in control. That means that you're going after a man who isn't a feminist, who doesn't want an egalitarian relationship, right? So does that says to me that this feminist actually doesn't want a feminist relationship. She might be a feminist. She might believe in all these things, but she's still willing to lie about what she really wants to get a man who isn't a feminist because she wants a man who feels like he's in control. Why? I've had personal experience with this. I know a lot of feminists and a lot of far lefties, like most of my friends are, and they absolutely do not adhere to any feminist or equal standards. I've dated feminists who got mad at me for not calling them back the next day. And I'm like, what do you mean? You're the feminist. You're supposed to call me. Nope, they don't want to. I think it's fair to say nature and nurture work hand in hand. To what degrees, I don't know. But anyone telling you that it's one or the other and not both is probably just wrong. Some people might claim it's more of one or more of the other. I don't know. Okay. But you know what? The more we see these stories, the more young people are starting to realize this fringe ideology is stupid. I don't look. I know some women who love weak, frail men. I mean, it exists. If you're a woman who wants that, go find the men who are like that. And if you're a man who wants that, then go find the women like that. But I think for the most part, we can see if even feminists are going after non-feminists and adhering to traditional gender roles without being prompted to, with every incentive not to, there's something else here. Maybe it's biology. I'll leave it there. Stick around. Next segment's coming up tomorrow at 10 a.m. and I will see you all. I'll see you all then.